The message came just before midnight, sharp and sudden, like a knock on the door of Daniel's life that could not be ignored. His phone buzzed on the table, breaking the quiet of the apartment. He glanced at the screen without urgency, expecting nothing more than a late email or a missed call. Instead, the words froze him in place. "We had no choice. You were holding us back." That was all it said. No greeting, no explanation, no apology. Just a sentence that cut deeper than any insult. Daniel read it again, then again, as if repetition might soften its meaning. It didn't. His fingers tightened around the phone, his breath shallow. Outside the window, traffic lights blinked and faded. Cars moved on. The city lived its life, unaware that his had just cracked open. The company he built with his own hands was gone. Not struggling, not changing direction, gone. And the person who took it from him was Aaron, his partner, his closest friend, the man he once trusted more than family. He sank into the chair, memories rushing in without warning. Long nights in a rented office with broken air conditioning, coffee cups stacked like trophies. Their first client, their first profit. The handshake where they promised they would always decide things together. Daniel remembered laughing, saying contracts were just paper because trust mattered more. He remembered writing the exit clause himself, late one night, never thinking it would be used against him. Now that same clause had been turned into a blade. Another message followed, colder and longer. Aaron explained the board's decision, the investors' concerns, the need for stability. Daniel was described as emotional, impulsive, a risk. The words felt rehearsed, polished by lawyers. There was no mention of loyalty, no mention of years spent building something from nothing. Daniel saw it clearly then. This was not sudden. This had been planned while he was still working, still believing, still trusting. His chest tightened, not with anger yet, but with disbelief. He stood and paced the room, every step heavy. The walls felt closer. The silence felt louder. He stopped by the window and looked down at the street, trying to breathe through the weight pressing on him. This was not just business. This was personal. Aaron knew what this company meant to him. Aaron knew how much he had given up for it. Daniel's mind replayed moments he once brushed aside. Meetings where Aaron spoke over him. Emails copied to investors without his name. Side conversations that stopped when he entered the room. All the signs were there. He had ignored them because trust made him blind. Now that blindness hurt more than the loss itself. Sat again, his phone resting in his palm like a heavy stone. He wanted to call Aaron, to demand answers, to shout, to hear something that might make this feel less real. But he didn't. He knew there was nothing Aaron could say that would change what had already been done. The damage was complete. Anger finally arrived, slow and steady, spreading through him like fire under ice. It was not loud, did not make him shake. It made him calm in a way that scared him. His thoughts sharpened, his focus narrowed. Betrayal had stripped away hesitation and doubt, leaving only clarity. He opened his laptop without fully realizing it. Old files stared back at him. Contracts, emails, financial records. Things he once skimmed now demanded attention. He remembered arguments about numbers that never added up. Payments delayed without reason. Promises made to investors behind closed doors. At the time, he trusted Aaron to handle it. Now those memories took on a darker shape. Daniel leaned back and closed his eyes. He saw Aaron's face on the day they signed their first deal, full of hope, full of gratitude. He saw it change into the confident smile he wore in recent months, the one that never quite reached his eyes. That smile now felt like a lie stretched over years. The sense of loss shifted into something else. Not sadness, purpose. The thought came quietly but firmly. If Aaron believed he could erase Daniel, he was wrong. If Aaron thought betrayal would go unanswered, he was wrong. Daniel had built this company. He knew its bones. He knew its secrets. And he knew where it was weak. The clock moved past 1 in the morning. Daniel had not noticed the time. His mind was moving too fast. Every choice he had made, every mistake, every moment of trust replayed itself with brutal clarity. He felt foolish, but that feeling did not weaken him. It hardened him. He stood again and walked to the kitchen, pouring a glass of water he barely drank. His reflection in the dark window looked older, tired, but his eyes were sharp. This was not just about losing a job. This was about being replaced, dismissed, treated like a problem to be removed. That kind of wound did not heal easily. Daniel thought of the life he had planned around the company, the future he had imagined, the sacrifices that now felt pointless. Anger rose higher, but he held it in check. Rage would make mistakes. He didn't want noise. He wanted precision. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a group message announcing the company's new direction. Aaron's name sat at the top, praised for leadership and vision. Daniel stared at it for a long moment, then turned the phone face down. Something inside him settled. A line had been crossed. There was no going back to before. He returned to his desk and opened a folder he had not touched in years. Early drafts, backup records. Things kept out of habit, not suspicion. As he scrolled, patterns formed quickly. Gaps, irregular moves. Decisions made without full approval. Daniel's heartbeat slowed as his mind raced. He wasn't imagining. There was more here than betrayal. There were choices that could be questioned, actions that could be exposed. The idea of revenge no longer felt like an emotional reaction. It felt logical, almost fair. Aaron had taken something precious. Daniel could take something back, balance the scales, show him the cost of betrayal. Yet even in that moment, a small voice whispered caution. This path would change him. He knew that. But the voice was weak, drowned out by the louder truth that justice rarely came on its own. Sometimes it had to be forced. Daniel shut the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The night felt endless, but he did not feel tired. He felt awake in a way he never had before. Betrayal had stripped his life down to something raw and clear. Trust was gone. Illusions were gone. What remained was choice. He did not decide anything. That night, he didn't need to. The seed had already been planted. Revenge did not arrive as a shout. It arrived as a promise, quiet and patient, waiting for the right moment to grow. As dawn crept in through the window, Daniel finally stood, straightened his shoulders, and breathed deeply. The man who believed in loyalty without question was gone. In his place stood someone sharper, someone watching more closely, someone who would not forget. Days moved fast after the night of the message, but inside Daniel, everything slowed into sharp focus. He woke early, slept little, and carried the same calm weight wherever he went. Friends asked how he was doing. He answered with short words and steady smiles. No one saw the storm moving quietly behind his eyes. He let the world think he was healing, because that made it easier to think. Each morning began the same way. Coffee, laptop, old files reopened. He did not rush. Revenge, he learned, demanded patience. He traced timelines, compared numbers, and followed trails that once seemed harmless. Patterns appeared quickly. Payments approved without full review. Decisions made in closed rooms. Promises whispered to investors that were never written down. Daniel didn't need imagination. The truth was already there, waiting to be seen. He remembered moments that now made sense. Aaron's sudden confidence. The way he spoke as if ownership had already shifted. The meetings Daniel was encouraged to skip. At the time, Daniel believed in teamwork. Now he saw preparation. Aaron had not betrayed him in a single move. He had done it slowly, carefully, step by step. Daniel kept his notes simple. Dates, names, numbers. No emotion. He treated the work like a puzzle, and each piece he placed brought both clarity and weight. He wasn't just uncovering a wrong. He was standing at the edge of a choice that could change lives, including his own, at night. When the city went quiet, his thoughts grew louder. He imagined the moment of exposure, the looks on faces when the truth came out. He imagined Aaron's voice, calm at first, then shaken. These thoughts brought relief, then doubt. He wondered how far was too far. He wondered when justice turned into cruelty. Aaron, meanwhile, moved freely. Daniel saw updates online, interviews, praise, smiles for the camera. He spoke about leadership and vision, never mentioning the man he had replaced. The injustice burned, but Daniel forced himself to stay focused. Emotion was fuel, not direction. One evening, Daniel met an old colleague for dinner. The conversation drifted toward the company, then stopped awkwardly. Daniel noticed the hesitation, the careful words. People were choosing sides already. He realized then how alone this path could become. Revenge demanded isolation. Trust had limits, now later. That night, he sat in the dark, staring at his phone. One message from the right person could start everything. A lawyer, a regulator, a journalist. The power sat in his hand, silent and ready. He didn't press send. Instead, he set the phone down and leaned back, breathing slowly. His mind replayed a memory he hadn't thought about in years. The night Aaron had called him in panic, convinced the company was finished. Daniel had talked him through it, reminded him why they started, why they trusted each other. That night, Daniel had been the steady one, the protector. Now the roles had reversed in the worst way. He asked himself a hard question. If he destroyed Aaron, would it heal him? Or would it simply spread the damage? The answer didn't come easily. Revenge promised control, but it also promised permanence. Once done, it could not be undone. Still, Daniel kept going. He didn't stop gathering facts. He didn't stop preparing. Preparation felt safe. Decision did not. The plan grew clearer each day, even as his certainty did not. He noticed changes in himself. He listened more, spoke less, he trusted no one fully. Sleep came in short bursts. His reflection looked sharper, leaner, shaped by purpose and restraint. He was becoming someone new, shaped not by ambition, but by response. Aaron reached out. Once, a brief message asking if Daniel wanted to talk. Daniel stared at it for a long time, then deleted it without replying. Some conversations came too late. Words could not repair what actions had broken. The pressure built quietly. Every new detail added weight. Daniel knew he held something dangerous. He knew the system would respond if he pushed. But he also knew the cost. Careers would fall. Families would feel it. The company itself might collapse. Innocent people could be caught in the fallout. That thought followed him everywhere. On walks, in crowded rooms, in silence. Revenge stopped feeling clean. It felt heavy, real, complicated. One night, after hours of reviewing files, Daniel closed his laptop and sat still. The room felt empty. He realized something important then. Revenge had kept him moving, but it had also kept him trapped. Thoughts circled back to Aaron. Every plan tied him tighter to the betrayal he wanted to escape. Yet letting go felt like surrender, like saying the betrayal didn't matter. And it mattered more than anything. Daniel stood and paced the room, the same way he had on the night everything broke. But this time, he wasn't lost. He was deciding. The path ahead split clearly now. One way led to exposure, justice, and consequences. The other led to silence, rebuilding, and uncertainty. He stopped by the window and looked out at the city. Again, lights on, lights off, lives continuing. He wondered how many people carried battles no one could see. He wondered what kind of man he wanted to be when this ended. The plan was ready. The evidence was solid. All that remained was the moment of choice. And that moment was coming fast. As Daniel turned away from the window, his phone vibrated softly. On the table. Another update. Another headline praising Aaron's leadership. Daniel picked up the phone, his face unreadable. He didn't react, he didn't smile. He didn't rage, he simply understood. The conflict was no longer about revenge. Alone, it was about identity, about whether betrayal would define him or whether he would decide what came next. The morning arrived without ceremony. Pale light sliding through the curtains as Daniel sat fully dressed on the edge of his bed. He had not slept. He did not need to. The decision he had delayed now stood in front of him, clear and unavoidable. Today would end it, one way or another. He moved through the city with steady steps, the evidence resting safely on his phone and in his mind. Every document, every number, every quiet truth was ready. The meeting was set in a glass-walled office high above the street. Neutral ground, safe ground, a place where words carried weight and choices could not be undone. Aaron was already there when Daniel arrived. He stood near the window, phone in hand, looking confident but worn around the edges. He turned when Daniel entered, surprise flashing across his face before settling into a careful smile. "I'm glad you came," Aaron said. Daniel nodded once and took a seat across from him. The room felt tight despite its size. Silence filled the space between them, heavy with everything left unsaid. Aaron spoke first, explaining himself again. He talked about pressure, investors, fear of collapse. He said the company needed one voice, one direction. He said Daniel had become unpredictable. He did not say he was sorry. He said he did what he believed was right. Daniel listened without interrupting. He felt the anger rise, then pass. He had imagined this moment many times, but reality felt quieter, more human. Aaron wasn't a monster. He was a man who made a choice and convinced himself it was necessary. When Aaron finished, Daniel stood. His heart beat slowly. His voice was calm. "You took something from me," Daniel said. "Not just the company. You took my trust." Aaron lowered his eyes. Daniel reached into his pocket and felt the phone. The evidence waited there, ready to be released. One motion could set everything in motion. Investigations, headlines, consequences. He saw the future clearly. It would be loud. It would be final. For a brief moment, satisfaction tempted him. The clean end, the sense of power. The idea that pain could be balanced. Then another image appeared. Himself months from now, still replaying this moment, still tied to it, still defined by it. Daniel realized something then. Revenge would not free him. It would anchor him to the worst moment of his life and call it justice. He took his hand away from his pocket. "I could end this for you," Daniel said quietly. "And maybe I should, but I won't." Aaron looked up, confused. "This isn't forgiveness," Daniel continued. "It's a boundary. You don't get to own what I become after this." Daniel turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavy and light at the same time. He expected regret. It didn't come. What came was relief. Thin at first, then steady. Behind him, Aaron spoke his name, but Daniel didn't stop. Outside, the city air felt sharper, real. Daniel breathed deeply, as if for the first time in weeks. The choice had been made. The fight inside him went quiet. Days passed, then weeks. The company stumbled. Decisions Aaron once handled with confidence, now strained under pressure. Mistakes surfaced on their own. Smaller truths came out without Daniel's help. Consequences arrived, slower but real. Daniel focused on rebuilding his life. Not the same way as before. He worked differently now, chose carefully, trusted slowly. He built something new, not just in business, but in himself. Sometimes the anger returned in waves. He let it pass. He did not chase it. He understood now that revenge was a door that only opened one way. One evening, Daniel stood at his window again, watching the city lights. He thought of the man he had been and the man he was becoming. The betrayal would always be part of his story, but it would not be the ending. He had lost something important. But he had gained something harder to earn: freedom.